Good evening and welcome. Thank you for joining us for the 2020 City of Temple Terrace Council Candidates Forum. My name is Kevin Woodard, and I'm the Recreation Leader for Senior Programs for the City of Temple Terrace. And I'm honored to be your host for this evening's session. Allow me to take a brief moment to explain an overview of the events tonight and to introduce our moderator. Tonight's forum is a question and answer session for the candidates for Temple Terrace City Council. This forum is being broadcast live on Frontier Cable Channel 39, Spectrum Cable Channel 641, and we're also live on YouTube. Please, if there's anyone that missed this live broadcast, let them know that this will be archived on YouTube for later viewing. Questions for the candidates were submitted to the city by the public prior to the event. We received those through city emails, through the city's website, and also by filling out candidate questionnaire cards that were available at the Family Recreation Complex and the Temple Terrace Public Library. Questions from the public were accepted for a 2-week period, beginning September 25th and ending October 9th. Questions received after 4 p.m. on October 9th will not be included in tonight's session. There were 40 questions received for this evening's event, but 2 of the questions are not being used due to inappropriate content. All questions used in the forum will be addressed to all 3 candidates and will pertain to functions of the city council members as defined by our city's charter. Questions submitted electronically have been transcribed onto comment cards that have been placed in our raffle drum. The moderator will be selecting the questions from this raffle drum, and that will be random. Each candidate will then be provided 2 minutes to answer each question. Since this is a timed event, we ask for your understanding if any questions that were submitted are not covered this evening. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce our moderator, a face that many of you will recognize, Mr. Kim Linebaugh. Kim D. Linebaugh was born in Des Moines, Iowa, and as a youth he traveled the world with his mother and father, who were employed by the U.S. Department of State. He was educated in Iowa. He earned his bachelor's degree in public administration at Drake University in Des Moines. Linebaugh devoted his entire career to serving cities, believing this level of government as the most important and effective, impacting the lives of citizens on a daily basis, and one where residents have the direct opportunity to interact with their local government officials. Mr. Linebaugh retired in 2014 after 46 years of experience in government and serving us through various positions. After he retired, he also accepted 2 interim city manager positions, one in Mount Dora and one in Plant City. Mr. Linebaugh was named city manager for the city of Temple Terrace in January of 1999 and served in that capacity for 14 years. Before that, he was the city manager of 3 other Florida municipalities: Madeira Beach, Atlantic Beach, and Green Cove Springs. Prior to coming to Florida, Linebaugh worked in various capacities in Iowa, including city administrator in Coralville, chief administrative officer in Manchester, and assistant to the city manager in West Des Moines. Linebaugh was among the first 70 professionals worldwide to earn the distinguishing title of Credentialed City Manager in the International City Management Association. He also is a member of the Florida City and County Management Association. Linebaugh advocates a citizens are our stockholders philosophy, believing that a community's residents are integral to the success of city government and their voices must be respected. Linebaugh served in the U.S. Army National Guard and was awarded an honorable discharge In January of 1977, he achieved the rank of sergeant. And now I turn the floor over to our moderator, Mr. Kim Lang.
Well, thank you, Mr. Woodard. I appreciate your comments. And good evening, City Council candidates and residents of Temple Terrace. The format for this evening's forum is that each candidate will be provided 3 minutes to introduce themselves and present their platforms. At the closing of the introductions, the question and answer session of the forum will begin. Each candidate will be given the opportunity to address each question and will be given 2 minutes, as noted, each to respond. Candidates will answer the first question in alphabetical order and then rotate on being the first to answer subsequent questions to allow each candidate the opportunity to respond first to a question. Candidate responses shall be timed by the timekeeper using the automatic clock timer located on the moderator's podium, and upon asking the question, a green light will appear and remain for 1 minute and 40 seconds. A yellow light will appear when 20 seconds are left, followed by a red light, which indicates the 2 minutes are up. When each candidate has given the opportunity to respond to the selected question, I will then select another question randomly. We will continue this format until the time of the question and answer session expires at 7:45. At the end of the question and answer session, each candidate will have 5 minutes to make their closing comments. The candidates will be announced in the same order as was done in the opening comments. This forum will end at 8 p.m. this evening. At this time, I'd like to introduce the candidates for the Temple Terrace City Council who are running for one seat on the council. In alphabetical order, the candidates are Meredith Abel, Raed Khawaja, and David Pogorilich. Let's begin with Ms. Abel. Would you start introducing yourself, and Mr. Khawaja afterwards, and Mr. Pogorilich?
Good evening. First of all, I would like to thank everyone from the city who was a part of putting this together. This was no small effort, and it's really important. We have 3 candidates for one city council seat, and it's really important that we come together and we discuss our vision for the future of the city. To introduce myself, I have lived in Temple Terrace for 11 years, and I love it here. Originally, I moved to Temple Terrace because I liked the location, and I was impressed with how well maintained the parks are. But I stayed here because I love my neighbors. In addition to that, I was so impressed by the amazing customer service from the employees of Temple Terrace, sanitation workers all the way on up. And in addition to that, I was impressed by the timeliness of the first responders and their professionalism. I'm a high school earth space science teacher, and in addition to that, I have an 8-year-old daughter who goes to local public schools. As a teacher, I've seen that diversity is our greatest strength, and it's really, everyone deserves a chance. In addition to that, I teach martial arts. I teach martial arts at Islamic Society of Tampa Bay and also Temple Terrace Rec Center. And growing up, martial arts was a really positive, formative experience for me. And I'm really grateful that I could share that with the local kids of Temple Terrace, helping them learn self-discipline, self-control, and strength to defend themselves. In addition to that, I'm also a member of the Temple Terrace Area Democrats, and I'm a volunteer driver for Meals on Wheels. I'm running for Temple Terrace because I believe it's time for the next generation to step up for Temple Terrace. I want to be a part of the solution to the problems that the city faces. And Temple Terrace needs leadership that is level-headed, responsible, responsive, willing to listen to everybody. And that's me. I have a vision for Temple Terrace to be a more economically and environmentally sustainable city. I want to see more equity and representation of diverse groups, and I want to be sure this is a place where businesses can thrive. I have received many donations from individual small donors in Temple Terrace who have seen my vision and they have faith in my vision. And they believe that we can have a city that meets these objectives. When I first started thinking about running for Temple Terrace City Council about a year ago, I really just started talking to people and listening to their vision. This is something that's been a long process that has gotten me to meet a whole bunch of people. I've spoken to many people who are city employees, first responders, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to run.
Thank you. Mr. Khawaja.
Yes. Good evening, everyone here and everybody watching. Respect, responsiveness, excellence, safety, professionalism, ethics, consistency, transparency, a core value of this city that a council leader must abide by. Temple Terrace is dubbed the amazing city and is supposed to be family friendly. City known as the most beautiful suburb. As a resident of Temple Terrace for close to 25 years, I decided to run for this nonpartisan position in City Council to try to bring back the city to how it was once before, and even better, utilizing my unique civil engineering experience and business background, as well as 2 years serving the Hillsborough County as a Diversity Advisory Council for the County Commissioners. I will bring in fresh perspective to the City Council for better outcomes, serving all the residents. If elected, I plan to ensure more revenues without increasing taxes by attracting bigger investors, solid investors, and introducing fine dining as an example. Additionally, I find it necessary to secure emergency fund during the time of crisis, such as COVID-19. In addition to introducing more revenues to the city, I plan to improve the economic and environmental sustainability of our city to ensure we will always be surrounded by beautiful and clean parks filled with grand oaks, pines, cypress trees, and as well as the flowing Hillsborough River. Moreover, I personally love to know the concerns of all residents and aim to abolish all of them regardless, as they all of priority to voices needed to be heard. I will repair the broken line of communication between residents and the community leaders by acting as a liaison to every resident in the city. While campaigning, I have been trusted and heard multiple input from the residents and my neighbors regarding our city and how to make it a better place to live, play, and work in. Hearing these voices is necessary to provide more comfortable, safe, and happy environment for Temple Terrace.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Mr. Pogorilich.
Thank you. And thank you all for viewing tonight. My name is David Pogorilich. I'm a graduate of Drexel University as undergrad, and I have an MBA from University of South Florida in business and finance. My vision really revolves around 5 points. First, to continue to strategically annex properties into Temple Terrace that provide a large tax base but don't use a disproportionate amount of resources. A great example of that is M&B Products that we annexed in a few years ago. Secondly, I will work with our private sector to bring businesses back into Temple Terrace, including high-paying jobs into our industrial park at Telecom. These businesses would be businesses that our citizens want and need, and could include a brewery, fine dining, services such as Advent Health, etc. These will bring opportunities to our people. It will fill up the empty storefronts, and it will lessen the tax burdens on our residents. Also, in addition to bringing new businesses into Temple Terrace, we need to find ways to support the businesses that have survived the COVID-19 impacts. We need to work with them on signage, advertising, and do everything we can to ensure their success. Fourth, I would work with our other jurisdictions to clean up our borders. As you look around the city, you can see exactly where our city stops and where our jurisdictions start. So I would work like we have in the past with our other jurisdictions to clean up the borders and make all of Temple Terrace a clean and safe place for everyone. Last but certainly not least, I would ensure that our service levels are high despite the coming negative impacts to the city's budget, and that would include supporting our fire and our police. I am very honored and proud to have received the endorsement of the Temple Terrace Fraternal Order of Police, and I think that they are a part of the fabric of our city. Without them, we would be in a lot of trouble. So in addition to that, I would continue to be a liaison like I have now, as being, I was the accounting liaison for the city of Temple Terrace, and worked with council and the department heads to bring one of the first clean audits to the city in decades. I was the liaison between the city and the country club, where we were able to find ways to keep the doors open, help them to be more successful, and most recently we were able to work together to find the most cost-effective way to replace the very aging and ailing irrigation system. I will continue to be that liaison. Together we are better. I truly believe that everyone working together can make this city the amazing city that we all want it to be. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. With that, I'll start with the first question. Thank you. First question, we'll start with Ms. Abel. What changes would you make to the sign ordinances? How would updating the ordinances be beneficial?
Well, I'll start this with a small anecdote. When I was first running for council, I looked at the sign ordinances so I could figure out what to do with my political signs. And I read them, but it's 8 pages. It's 8 pages, and it's not really clear or easy to understand. And I'm a pretty good reader, so I think that a simplification of that is in order. And in addition to that, many business owners who I've spoken to have expressed concerns about the sign ordinances because they feel like they can't let their business be seen. Now, I understand the attractiveness of the city, and we don't want to have it littered with signs that are unappealing, but I think it's really important to be able to have a sign ordinance in place that makes it so businesses can advertise and show that they're there and get the business that they need. But simplification is definitely important, and making it easy to understand so people don't get unnecessary attention for the signs that they are putting out.
Okay. Thank you very much. Again, Mr. Khawaja, the question is, what changes would you make to the sign ordinance? How would updating the ordinances be beneficial?
Well, speaking as a civil engineer, the sign ordinances were already been studied and been put in place to serve this community. And sometimes you can also use it based on percentages. It depends on where it's located, where it's whether it's lighted up or not lighted. I agree with the current ordinances that have the place is a little bit more settled. This is a family city. We like to have these signs just not like Las Vegas. We would like to have them in nice, attractive, to fit in the community and into the surroundings that we have. Now, to change them, sometimes if it's necessary, we can always ask for these variants to take care of these signs. But as far as the ordinances are there, they're perfect. Again, I looked them up too when I started even campaigning. There's some needs permit, some needs temporary permit, but we have a perfect signage and sign ordinances that's already in place.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Pogorilich, what changes would you make to the sign ordinances? How would updating the ordinances be beneficial?
Well, as you travel through Temple Terrace, I think everyone will notice that part of the problem with the signage that we currently have is that many of our restaurants, our services, our businesses are set back off of the road. And people, if you don't know it's there, if you don't know a business is there, if you don't know a restaurant is there, you have no way of knowing it's there. So I think we should take a look at, even if it's not all the time, relaxing the sign ordinances to some degree so that people can advertise maybe a daily special or something. As you drive through telecom, it's even worse. There's palm trees that block your view of what's behind the palm trees. Many of the smaller restaurants can't advertise and let people even know that they're there. Especially in the age of COVID where everybody is being impacted, restaurants especially, I think we have to re-examine how we allow restaurants and businesses to advertise and try to give them a leg up so that they can sustain through the negative impacts of COVID. And that could include times of the year where we relax the roadside signage, allowing them to put banners up for certain amounts of time. I know part of the sign ordinance doesn't allow flashing lights and all that good stuff, and that's for a good reason. You know, you don't want us to look like Las Vegas, but I think we can relax them to some degree, especially in the age of COVID, to allow our businesses to be seen so that they can stay in business and thrive.
Thank you, sir. And we'll start with Mr. Khawaja.
Yes, sir.
Thinking about the council meetings over the past year, what moment left you disappointed and why?
Well, in the past year, I have watched some of the council meetings. I've participated in some of them, but I've never been left disappointed. Now, there are some times I feel like some issues can be handled right there at the same time, and sometimes it's carried on to the next meeting and then to the next meeting. There are some issues that are very simple. I know there is this process is not easy. You have to be committed. You have to be very wise in taking these decisions. But some of them, you can always take those decisions. For example, the last meeting I was here, I was hoping that Mr. Stevenson, they would renew his contract because of the timing. I understood that. They had an ample time. But, you know, always is good to see things move forward and be resolved immediately, and we go on different business. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Mr. Pogorilich, thinking about the council meetings over the past year, what moment left you disappointed and why?
Well, first let me say that I've been attending council meetings for 20 years, so there's been a lot of times where I've left a little bit disappointed. You know, after you attend a few of these, you understand that the wheels of justice sometimes move slowly in government. But I would say that probably my biggest disappointment of the last year wasn't a particular meeting, but it was a meeting when, as everybody I'm sure is aware, we had issues with our prior mayor's educational background and whether or not she had certain degrees. And at first, I was a big defender, but when we weren't getting answers about the second master's degree, that left me and a lot of other people a lot disappointed. So I think that particular meeting, or those particular meetings, where we never got closure on whether or not the second master's degree was obtained or not, was probably a disappointment for myself and many people in Temple Terrace. Other than that, I think our council does a fantastic job. They always have the best interests of the city in mind. The decisions don't come as quick as some people would like, and there's usually good reason for that. You know, certainly I would like to see us move a little faster on some things, but that's not always possible. But like I said, I've been coming here for 20 years, and sometimes I leave disappointed, sometimes I leave angry, sometimes I leave very happy. But this is an amazing city, and you won't find a better group of people that are currently running it.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Abel, thinking about the council meetings over the past year, what moment left you disappointed and why?
Before I answer that, I'd like to address that, you know, I've been going to city council meetings for at least the last year, and I've gone to enough at this point to realize that it's easier said than done. And I understand that there's a lot of challenges you face, and you have to, because of the Sunshine Law, you have to discuss things openly, and you can't have backdoor dealing or anything. So sometimes stuff gets aired in front of everybody that sometimes is a little bit uncomfortable, and we've seen that in recent meetings. But a couple of things that I've been disappointed by in recent meetings are, I think it was, I don't remember the date, maybe back in February, I came to a meeting and they were discussing the budget. And I remember a couple of department heads came up and they spoke requesting funding for a couple of projects that were pretty essential. I think one of them had to do with fixing either a sewer main or a water main, and the other one had to do with something else with public works. And they got the feedback from council that, well, this should have been mentioned earlier. And I came up and I asked at the podium, I said, well, why were they not given an opportunity to bring it up earlier? Because they showed up to this meeting specifically to ask. And the feedback they were given was that while the council wanted to make a decision the previous week, they were given the opportunity to speak a week later. And I just felt like if a department head comes to a city council meeting and requests something, it's because it's something that's needed. So I think that that needs to be requested in a timely fashion so that they can get those needs met. In addition to that, there was a request from the League of Women Voters to celebrate an anniversary of theirs, and that got shot down because at the last minute, in front of everybody, and it didn't get celebrated even though there was a representative from the League of Women Voters that came to receive an award, and they were told, no, we're not going to give you that award because that's a partisan organization. And it was on the agenda, so yeah.
Okay, thank you. Start with Mr. Pogorilich. Do you agree that there needs to be a restoration of transparency and trust in city government? If yes, give examples of where you see a lack of transparency, what areas you feel government is not doing its job, and why you believe that some residents have lost trust in the process.
Well, I would say that, let me address the last part first. Many people in Temple Terrace and the nation have lost trust in their government. Here in Temple Terrace, I don't think we truly have that problem. I think, sunshine laws apply to every government official, and they can't, the only place they can speak from is the dais. They can't have conversations with each other. I don't think that happens. There aren't any backroom dealings going on. Certainly, I think the city as a whole, we could do a better job of telling people what's going on. But to some extent, it's the responsibility of the citizens to find out what's going on, and to say, well, I wasn't told. Well, if you have a computer, there's a gazillion Facebook sites that repeat everything that's going on in the city every day. You can sign up for text messages. You can call in. You can sign up for phone calls. So I think the city does a very good job of being transparent. Obviously, we can always do better, but I don't believe that we have, quote, a problem in transparency. I think every single member of council knows what they can and can't do. I think the people that work in City Hall are all above board, and they want to all do the best for the city. We are very fortunate in Temple Terrace. We are, quote, the amazing city. We have citizens that volunteer, including myself, to help the city move forward. One of the best things about the city is our volunteerism. You don't see that in other cities. The police and fire are extremely transparent. Before COVID hit, anybody wanted to talk to the police officers, all you had to do was show up for the coffee with a cop. The fire department has an open house. The police officers go to the schools to teach.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Abel, do you agree that there needs to be a restoration of transparency and trust in city government? If yes, give examples of where you see a lack of transparency, what areas you feel government is not doing its job, and why you believe that some residents have lost trust in the process.
As I've been campaigning and speaking with many residents, a handful have expressed disappointment to me about their lack of transparency and trust in government. I think the greatest disappointment in Temple Terrace is the fact that the downtown did not get developed as planned and as scheduled. Prior to that, there was a lot of outreach to the community about exactly what they wanted, and it was an in-depth study. There were beautiful master plans done. And we all know what happened with that. Partially the economy, partially some decisions that maybe weren't the best decisions. And when that didn't happen, I think people really felt jaded about the lack of progress in that area. But we have to move on. We have to develop a plan to go forward with that. I think that there's been an increase in improved communication with the city. There's the hotline now, and the website is often updated with news, and the city council minutes are always posted. But I think COVID has taught us something, and that's that we can do a lot of things by video. Not only can we have these things posted live, they have been for a long time, but also residents can call in, and they have for some meetings that were very controversial lately. And I think that the more citizen involvement we can have, the less lack of trust and, well, the less of a feeling of a lack of trust and transparency that we might have. I think also we need good sources of information. Now, Facebook does have many groups, and they are not always good sources of information. So it'd be great if we had some sort of impartial reporting on what happened here, but that's not really a city issue. We need the press here to be able to report on the meetings and provide a news source to the residents of Temple Terrace.
Thank you, Mel. Mr. Khawaja, do you agree that there needs to be a restoration of transparency and trust in city government? If yes, give examples of where you see a lack of transparency and what areas you feel government is not doing its job, and why you believe that some residents have lost trust in the process.
Yes. This issue is not part of the issues that the city of Temple Terrace has. It has a miscommunication. It's not transparency. Sometimes the residents don't have maybe ample time or good resources to know about some issues going on with their life, as everybody knows, going to work and, you know. So what we need is better communication for issues that's really crucial to the city. There's some issues they might not, nobody would really, it won't matter. We have such a good comprehensive plan and such good budget plan that when you go and read them, I know it's a lot of reading, but it sets the goals, it sets the objectives of the city. As far as transparency, I think the whole entire city is very transparent. You can go anywhere and get any information that you need right at the touch of a button. So if we say this exists, it might exist in other cities, in other part of the country, in other countries around the world, but not in the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. Ms. Abel, how do you promote and support diversity in Temple Terrace?
Temple Terrace is a wonderfully diverse community, and just on my street, there's many people from different walks of life. The place where there is not a lot of diversity is in Temple Terrace's leadership. And I think that an area where we can grow is to bring in more people from diverse communities in Temple Terrace by creating citizens advisory boards. I think that we need to have a Muslim advisory board, a Black advisory board, Latina advisory board, LGBTQ advisory board, because I feel like the input of the citizens really matters, and the more that we can have, the better.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Khawaja, how do you promote and support diversity in Temple Terrace?
Well, you know, diversity is well defined. It's based on many things: race, gender, ethnic background, religious preferences. However, if you go to every person and see the city and walk around the city, go shopping in the city, campaigning like what I was doing for the past couple of months in the city, you'll see that we're living in a very diverse, diverse community. You'll find houses next to each other that comes from different parts of the nation, different parts of the world. So as far as diversity, I think the city of Temple Terrace, one of the best place to live if you are with diversity. And an example is myself. I immigrated to this country almost 38 years ago, and I lived several areas. The most comfortable place I felt in is the city of Temple Terrace. That's why I'm running. I want to help my city. I want to be there for my residents. I want to be there for every single family and every single person in the city of Temple Terrace. I support diversity. As I mentioned in the beginning, I was on a diversity advisory council as a liaison and as a communicator between all residents from every part of the nation and with every different beliefs and different understanding. And everybody had their points getting across to the county commissioners. So diversity is our city, actually.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Pogorilich, how do you promote and support diversity in Temple Terrace?
Well, like the other two candidates, I think we all agree that Temple Terrace is a very diverse city. As I've been campaigning and walking around, I've talked to a professor, for instance, from the Sudan. He and his family came here. A lot of his friends from the Sudan are here. I've talked to people that immigrated from Russia. I'm a product of immigration. My father and his family immigrated from Yugoslavia. So I understand some of the plights of the immigrants. I've talked to immigrants from Russia, Muslims, and from Croatia. And we are diverse, and they are all very happy here. I asked them all the same thing, what brought you here? Well, they came here to escape problems they had where they came from. And they came here and they are extremely happy about the way they've been treated, the way they've been welcomed. If you look at some of our volunteer boards, they are already diverse. I'm the chairman of the code board. We have a very diverse code board. In order to promote that, I think the best thing we can all do is be the change that we want to see. To treat everybody like they are, like citizens of Temple Terrace, not because they're of their ethnic background, but just because we're all citizens. We're all in this together. We all live and breathe the same air. We all have our successes and failures tied to everything that else that happens in the city. We all need to be the change we want to be. And that is the best way for us to all promote diversity and to be diverse and get along. The other thing that I wish would happen is that more diverse people would apply for more of our volunteer groups. We are, like I said, we are getting more diverse in our volunteer groups, but sometimes we struggle to even get people to volunteer for a group. I would love to see a more diverse group of people applying for some of our volunteer boards.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Khawaja, what are the plans for getting some stores and shopping in Temple Terrace?
Okay, there are a lot of plans. Is having the city, modify some maybe transportation and traffic ways to help reduce the traffic and getting better and better shopping, better quality shopping stores, attracting them, and being in close distances to big events like or big institutions like University of South Florida. We have Busch Gardens very close by. We can promote a lot of these big businesses to come to Temple Terrace by also giving them some incentives. It could be some tax cuts or some incentives that we can work with these big developers we're going to reap the fruits of it later on down the road and have them stay and help our economy and help also employment and help bring a lot of people to the city, but also with having that infrastructure at the right place and the right location. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Pogorilich, what are the plans for getting some stores and shopping in Temple Terrace?
Well, I think it's time for council and the city itself to take a more active role in that regard. I think we need to partner with our private sector real estate groups, with private sector realtors, both on the commercial and residential side. We need to leverage our marketing efforts inside the city with those of the private industry. A perfect example is if you go to any T-shirt store on the beach in St. Pete or Clearwater, there's a brochure there for Brandon. Brandon's not even a city. We need to let people know that Temple Terrace is here. We need to emphasize the fact that we're a hop, skip, and a jump from I-75, 275, I-4, that Telecom Park is open for business and has space available. We need to have our council members, including myself if elected, to start showing up at real estate group meetings. We used to do that in the past. There was a group called the Real Estate 100 that we would show up. They'd meet at the country club and we'd be there. We need to let them know that we're open for business, that we have space available, what that space consists of, and that we are welcoming to business. There's been times in the past that Temple Terrace has had opportunities that haven't come to fruition because of outcry from some of our citizens. The citizens and the council all need to get on board to recognize that, especially in the age of COVID, that we need to bring businesses back to Temple Terrace. Not just any businesses that the citizens want and need, but we need to be open. We need to let everybody know that we are open for business, and I think the council and the city itself need to take a bigger role and partner with our private industry teammates to do that.
Thank you, sir. Steve, what are the plans for getting some stores and shopping in Temple Terrace?
Well, first I'd like to say that the city already has some plans underway that are pretty exciting to me. First of all, it has a new shop local, dine local, support local program. They have this little decal that you can apply for and get and stick in your shop. And we all have to do our part to support local businesses. And the more we support local businesses, the more local businesses will come. We have to do our job also to attract those new businesses. In addition to that, we have a partnership with the Small Business Development Center, and our city is offering free one-on-one business consulting and development training and specialized workshops to help businesses grow and succeed. So we're on the right track, but we do need to do more. For example, I think we need to have a metric dashboard that has the city's statistics, its demographic information, its income information, its tax-based information, so that people, investors, future business owners could have something they could glance at, so they can have some ideas about what they can do as they come into this city and what kind of prospects they have for success in this city. In addition to that, we need to have welcome packets for new businesses. I think the chamber used to do that. I'm not sure if it's doing it anymore, but we need to have these welcome packets that lay out all the city's procedures very clearly and succinctly. That goes back to simplifying the sign rules, but we need to have these welcome packets that will explain how things work in the city and provide maybe some access to grants or incentives that the city might be able to provide. In addition to that, we need to continue marketing ourselves, and I think we should market ourselves as a great place to raise a family. We need to make Temple Terrace a destination where people want to visit and the types of businesses people want to see. I keep hearing breweries, coffee shops that are walkable, and I think in our development sector, we could definitely attract that. We just have to have a unified vision and go toward that.
Thank you, Bill. All right, Mr. Pogorilich, I believe your turn. Are you ready to make financial adjustments regarding redevelopment? Do you think an adjustment in the site plan review by a council and the community development is required?
Not sure I understand the question.
Okay.
We've sold, I think, 3 parcels or 4 parcels down there. When I was on council, I made sure that all the proceeds from the parcels went towards paying down the loans that we took out to buy the parcels. So I'm not so sure that we need to make any financial adjustments there. We are getting parcels sold. We are getting retail in those parcels. We are getting good apartments in those parcels. Certainly, I think we need to do more to sell off the rest of the parcels and pay off those loans. So I'm not sure what was meant by that question, but I do believe that we are currently on the right track. I'd like to see us accelerate it a little bit, and that's where, again, where working with the private sector would come into play in trying to get those other parcels sold and bring much-needed retail back into Temple Terrace.
All right. Thank you, sir. Ms. Abel, are you ready to make financial adjustments regarding redevelopment? Do you think that an adjustment in the site plan review by council and the community development is required?
When I spoke to all of the existing, well, not all, most of the existing council members about their vision for downtown and what's necessary to continue to develop downtown, they explained to me that many of the loans, well, not many of the loans, one of the major loans has been refinanced so that we have a lower interest rate. In addition to that, some parcels, like Mr. Pogorilich said, have been sold and demolition is occurring. So things are happening. They are happening slowly. But I think when it comes to reassessing what was it, the tax? Can you say that again?
I was asking if the financial adjustments should be made as well as an adjustment in the site plan review process by council and community development.
I'm not really sure what kind of adjustment we would make to the site plan. I know that the ones that have been purchased, some of them are beginning construction, others are not, and some of them don't really have a plan. So I think we need to reach out to those who have purchased it and make sure they're taking action on that. But that's all I've got.
All right, thank you. Mr. Khawaja, are you ready to make financial adjustments regarding redevelopment? Do you think that an adjustment in the site plan review process by council and the community development is required?
From the way I understand this question as an engineer, being on a committee or a council, it's very crucial if this plan is going to impact the city of Temple Terrace, impact them financially or even with traffic, we have to get the input of the people. If the councilman and the panel sitting there, if they don't give the opportunity to the people that elected them to give them an idea what's going on, especially on a redevelopment or some major DRI that we have in the area, we ought to have the councilman and the development community group review this as far as giving the wise and good decisions. Now, what happened back in 2000, I don't think that was a very wise and good decision. However, the city is moving forward. As you see, it's that half of the debt, I believe, has been paid off, and hopefully in the next few years we will be debt-free. I come from a background to be solid financial and a solid citizen and productive to the city. You cannot be in debt. You have to be debt-free, especially as far as the city of Temple Terrace is concerned, 7 square miles. We can always have those mistakes or problems that happened in the past never happen again by using experts and people to advise on any redevelopment and any finances that have to be
Thank you.
put in place.
Do you view a seat on the council as an opportunity to be an ambassador for the city for its programs, services, and policies, or as a platform for gaining citizen complaints and grievances?
That's a funny question. I think that as a city council person, you have to play both sides. Not only do you need to be able to listen to the citizens and be available to them, which is something that's very important to me, but you also have to serve as an ambassador for the city. You have to serve on boards with the county, with the state, with the League of Cities, and you need to represent your city so that your city can get the things that it needs from them, and it can cooperate with other organizations and groups. So, yeah, and you have to listen to the people. I feel as though on City Council, I will be accessible to the people of Temple Terrace. My ears will be open. You can have my phone number. Give me a call and tell me what your concern is. Everyone who I spoke to while campaigning, I would say, what is your vision for the city? What's important to you for Temple Terrace? And if they had complaints, they had complaints. And if they complain to me on City Council, I will do everything I can to help address their complaint and see what the deal with that is. Because that's the job, and that's what I'm signing up for.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Khawaja, do you view a seat on the council as an opportunity to be an ambassador for city programs, services, and policies, or as a platform for airing citizen complaints and grievances?
Well, taking this commitment to become a councilman, you have to do it all. It's not as everybody would think, it's a part-time job. It's not a part-time job. I know the council meets twice a month, God helps them, but it's a 24-hour a day, 365 days a year for the 4 years that you're elected for. So you have to be, as I mentioned in my opening, on my platform, you have to be responsiveness. The responsiveness goes from both ways. And to give excellence, the excellence to give to the people, and also be an advocate of the city and of its staff. You have to reward and tell. Also, you can't just, you're elected by the people, you have to be working for all these people. And at the same time, you have to give the utmost respect for also the hard-working people in the city, police department, fire department, management, building, development, engineering, sanitation, all these departments. We have a lot of people that you have to be in this role. Being a councilman, it's not just a part-time job. You have to always answer to all the citizens and all the people that count on you. And as I promised always, again, I'm all ears and I want to hear it all. I will help as many as I can within the abilities and the capabilities that we have as a council.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Pogorilich, do you view a seat on the council as an opportunity to be an ambassador for the city's programs, services, and policies, or as a platform for airing citizens' complaints and grievances?
Yes. It's being a council member and being a council member of Temple Terrace is unique. We are a small city stuck between two larger municipalities. So of course we have to be ambassadors of our policies, and sometimes we need the help of our neighbors on our borders, and we have to be ambassadors to bring the programs to them. Once a year, and I've done it, we go in front of the state legislature, and we have to be ambassadors in front of the state legislature to get much needed tax dollars to do some of the things that we need to do in the city of Temple Terrace. At the same time though, many citizens don't know the inner workings of the city, don't know where to go or what to do or who to talk to, but they know us. And over the decades, people know that they can get to their city council member, and those city council members will listen to them. That's our job. That's what we do. To this day, I can't just run into Publix. I have to, a loaf of bread takes me an hour, because people want to talk to you. They want to know. They know that you will help them, and that's what we're here for. We're here that we are elected by the citizens. We serve the citizens, and that's our job, is to serve the citizens in any way possible. So if you have to listen to them, quote, airing their grievances, most of this time it's because they're either frustrated because they haven't gotten anywhere any other way, or they just don't know where to turn. And if we can help them solve their problems, create a win-win situation for everybody, that's absolutely part of our job, and that's what makes me happy to get up in the morning and do it again the next day.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Khawaja. Will you always support a balanced budget?
When you say balanced budget for the fiscal year for the city of Temple Terrace, for example?
I would presume that's the case, yes.
Yes. This is a very painstaking that I was looking into it. 412 pages of budget documents. The only thing I printed for myself is the 10 goals. Part of it is the 10 goals that the city council set up to achieve. But a balanced budget is very, very healthy. And to have those guidelines and the details in the budget documents. I don't remember who I talked to a couple of days ago, or today, I think, about the budget. It's a yearly thing. It keeps going, and they start working on that. Every department and every personnel, you name it, every section of this city of Temple Terrace has to contribute and put their input, and so they can have this budget balanced and without any errors. Now, I support, though, a little bit of funding to set aside for future or for some kind of emergency similar to COVID or any other emergencies that we might have within the city. This, I think, the wisdom and the hardworking people of the city of Temple Terrace, if we put the trust in them, they will prevail for us. And they always prevailing for a good, balanced budget. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Pogorilich, would you support a balanced budget? Will you always support a balanced budget?
Absolutely, I will always support a balanced budget. Like I said before, I was the accounting liaison for the city for some time, and that was what we always tried to do. One of the things we always tried to do was to get a balanced budget. The other thing that we tried to do was to pass the audit. And many years we passed the audit, but there were a lot of questions. Through my efforts with council and the finance director, we finally got a clean audit. So yeah, you can't be fiscally healthy if you don't have a balanced budget. And obviously reserves are part of that balanced budget. We need to make sure that we have reserves for hurricanes and COVID and everything else. And we need to make sure that one of the biggest portions of our $66 million budget is salaries, is wages and salaries. We need to make sure that we take care of our citizens as well as our employees, and along the way make sure that that budget is balanced so that we know what we're spending and we don't spend more than what we have. So the short answer is yes. Obviously, that's a $66 million budget has a lot of tentacles, and we have to make sure that we dive into the details each and every time to ensure that each one of the funds, and there are a number of funds, is being appropriated properly, is being spent properly, is being funded properly. But at the end of the day, that budget does need to be balanced, yes.
Thank you, sir. Say, will you always support a balanced budget?
Absolutely. I read the budget pretty much cover to cover. The beginning is the interesting part, and then there's a lot of numbers. But it's a $66 million budget, roughly, and in the past budget, we had allocated about $55 million, and there's money in reserves. And I think that the budget right now for Temple Terrace is healthier than it's been in a while. But we do need to maintain our bond rating by managing our debt-to-income ratio. And that's going to be coming up here in a few years as some of the redevelopment loans are coming to a certain point where it's going to get pretty serious when it comes to paying them off. But it's our job to be fiscally responsible. For the money that comes in from the taxpayers, we need to make sure we can do payroll for the city employees. We need to make sure we can maintain our city services, and we need to make sure we have money in reserves. And reserve funds, they're not just for dipping into when you feel like it. They're there for when there's some sort of emergency. So I think that a balanced budget is absolutely critical, and I'll always support that.
Thank you. Mr. Pogorilich, what are your positions on regulation of short-term rentals / Airbnbs? We have a huge problem in our neighborhood.
Well, we do have the rental housing program in Temple Terrace. We do inspections. You know, the Airbnb is actually controlled on a state level, not at the City of Temple Terrace level. So my position personally I'd like to see less of them in Temple Terrace. I'd like to see more actual home ownership. But I think that, you know, the way that we handle them is probably better than most cities. Like I said, we do have the fire department handles the rental properties. They go in and inspect them. People have to get a permit. There's rules on how many non-relatives can live in a single residence. So we're doing what we can. I would like to review it and maybe toughen it up a little bit if we can. But like I said, most of that is done at the state level, not at the City of Temple Terrace level, especially when it comes to Airbnbs. So to a certain extent, our hands are tied a little bit, but I would like to see us get a little bit tougher on some of the rental properties, because whoever wrote that question, they have a problem, and they're not alone. There's other people that have problems with renters living next door to them and having too many people living there, and et cetera, et cetera. So I think we should get a handle on that. And I would love to find a way to promote ownership in Temple Terrace versus rentalship.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Abel, what is your position on regulation of short-term rentals / Airbnb? We have a huge problem in our neighborhood.
With regard to Airbnb, I was under the impression that that was not allowed in Temple Terrace, because a couple years ago I was looking for a way to make some additional income. So I researched Airbnb, and I found that there weren't any in Temple Terrace, and also that they weren't allowed. But maybe I would need to double check on that. But Airbnb, I've used before when I've traveled, and I think it's great. But for a city like Temple Terrace, I really don't think it is. I think they undermine neighborhoods, because you have people coming and going, the neighbors don't know who they are, and I feel like they're definitely a problem because of those reasons, and also because it leaves houses vacant instead of having families in them. So I'm against Airbnb, and if there's a resident with a problem with it, I hope that they can get that addressed, because it is an issue.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Khawaja, what is your position on regulation of short-term rentals / Airbnb? We have a huge problem in our neighborhood.
Yes, this is, and I've heard that too. However, I want to mention this before I go on. We're in close proximity to University of South Florida. It's considered, I'm an alumni of that university. Now, having those short-term rentals and the Airbnb problem that this maybe gentleman is having, or this group of people are having, it should be addressed. But it's, as Mr. David mentioned, it's some of these regulations are not in the city's hand. They're way bigger than that and on a state level. So if I'm elected, I will look into that deeply, and we can maybe work out something that will also keep us continuing and working. It probably bring in also revenues to the city, having those short-term rentals. It could be students that also seeking education, being so close to the University of South Florida. So this is a very important issue. As a small city, as I mentioned before, I was here when even roads were dirt roads, and it's all housing, even though we were very close to the university, but the university grew up so fast. It multiplied, and I was there when it was even less than that. So this is what's really happening. It's the University of South Florida. It's kind of their housing and their accommodations are getting close to our city, and that's why we have to work together and see some kind of solution for that. Thank you.
What vision do you have for the Parks and Recreation Department in the future?
What, sorry?
What vision do you have for the Parks and Recreation Department in the future?
Oh, vision. Parks and Recreation Department is awesome. So all of the renovations that have happened in the Temple Terrace Rec Center look amazing. If you haven't been there recently, you need to check it out. Everything's freshly painted. During COVID times when they weren't taking kids for the after-school program anymore, they painted and they made it look fantastic. Everything's updated there. It's in great condition. Beyond that, I would like to see more programs available. Right now we have some limited facility space. There's a lot of classes that people might want to take that there isn't enough time, enough time slots and availability for those classes. I know people are interested in like Zumba and that kind of thing. It would be nice to have more facilities available. And beyond that, I think Temple Terrace Rec and Parks and Rec and the facilities we have are doing a great job. In addition, though, we have several park projects that are coming along really nicely. Recently, we got new equipment at Bonnie Bray Park, and the dog park has been really well attended by people lately. Somebody who I spoke to told me they would really love to see more fitness facilities, like outdoor workout equipment, so that they can have group workouts outdoors. There's a lot of great ideas for what we can do, but right now I think we're in a really good place with Parks and Rec.
All right, thank you. Mr. Khawaja, what vision do you have for the Parks and Recreation Department in the future?
Well, I just wanted to mention this. My kids grew up in the rec center. We live close to that, very close, walking distance to the rec center. We have one of the nicest rec centers in the country, if you want to even take it as far as the country. However, we also have good programs, and there are some leagues, and also encourage the young youth. But my vision is probably maybe a dream. I hope it comes through. If we can develop even a bigger name for the city of Temple Terrace by having our own team that competes on the national level. As far as basketball, there are some talents. If you've been at the rec center, I've been there my son plays basketball, and with school, I don't think he's going to be drafted in the NFL or in the NBA. He loves football and he loves basketball. But if we have a league that we can compete among cities, that would be a really bringing to town some family and some youth inspiration and participation and having pride of our city, which is we always love and live in. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Pogorilich, what vision do you have for the Parks and Recreation Department in the future?
Well, as mentioned, the parks, the rec center rather, just went under a major renovation, and it does look beautiful. When I was on council, I fully supported and we approved the budget to make sure that happened. A few years ago, we had a major soccer tournament here, and I realize COVID has impacted a lot of those types of activities. But I'd like to see us bring some more major events, whether it's soccer or gymnastics or tennis or whatever it is. Bring some major events back into the city. Same thing at the country club. We had many years ago. Some of us may remember the Italian Open was held at the country club. I'd like to see the country club bring some major sporting events. We do the Hickory tournament, which is wonderful. I'd like to see us bring some more major events back into the park and recreation and the country club. That does a couple things. It brings people into the city, gets us to showcase our city and maybe bring in some new residents, but it also brings much needed revenue into the city that we might not otherwise get. So the parks, Carl does a wonderful job. He's also does things at the senior center up the street on Whiteway, at Lightfoot. And they do a great job there. I'm sure there's some things that they would like to do differently there. One of the other things I'd like to see us get back into doing, and it wasn't necessarily all the rec center, but we used to have an actors guild, if you will, that used to perform. And we've kind of lost that because of, they lost space, and we had promised them a arts center, we didn't do it, and I'd like to see us try to work towards bringing that back.
Thank you, sir. I believe you're up, sir.
Yes.
Khawaja. What are your views on annexation and redevelopment? Why?
Well, I do support annexation if people agree to be annexed. And redevelopment, that will bring in more revenues, better net revenues. But the redevelopment also has to be really well thought and make sure that the city can handle it and can also work and provide for this area and having it, that's having it annexed or redeveloped. But I'm for that if we can, because that's part of what we can grow the city and have more revenues, provide more services, and be the better future for our city.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Pogorilich, what are your views on annexation and redevelopment, and why?
Well, as I mentioned in my opening statement, I think strategic redevelopment, strategic annexation is the way to go. The properties down by M&B Products down the end of Harney Road and Amazon are two great examples. The road improvements down there will allow us to continue to annex out that direction and bring in properties that, as I said before, that provide much-needed tax revenue, but don't use an indisputable amount or a large amount of resources. M&B Products creates a lot of tax revenue for us. They use hardly any resources. If we can continue that strategic annexation, I think that's the way to go. As far as redevelopment, absolutely, I want redevelopment. We're doing it. Everybody saw the old Burger King has been knocked down, and they're getting ready to start construction on bringing some much-needed retail into the area. But redevelopment just for redevelopment's sake is certainly not the way to go. We need to be smart about it. We need to make sure we bring in businesses that the citizens want and need, and we need to do it without incurring additional debt. So the short answer is yes, I'm in favor of redevelopment. The short answer is yes, I want us to see us to continue to annex all of our annexations, but for maybe one property that I can think of has always been voluntary. That's what we want to do. We want to voluntarily annex property for a couple of reasons. One, we don't want people here that don't want to be here. And secondly, it's a much more expensive process to do it on an involuntary basis. So I think we need to be strategic both on a fiscal sense and a regional sense as to where we annex. And the same thing with redevelopment. We need to be smart about where we redevelop and how we redevelop.
Thank you, sir. Abel, what are your views on annexation, redevelopment, and why?
Well, I think that annexation requires a careful cost-benefit analysis because, sure, annexing can bring in increased tax revenues, but whatever roads are there, they'll need to be repaired eventually, sewer lines, water lines, all of these things require maintenance and they all have a cost. So I don't think we should annex willy-nilly, and also we can't annex without regulation because annexation is finite. We have borders that run into things eventually, so we can't just do that indefinitely. The city budget needs to be able to meet our needs for where we are, and if we expand too far, we might start having trouble balancing the budget. So I'm not against annexation, but I am for careful consideration before we annex. The Amazon annexation was good. It's going to bring in a lot of money. Are we ready for it? It's going to be a big change for Temple Terrace in terms of the tax revenue coming in from the Amazon annexation. I am in favor of redevelopment. In fact, I think it's completely needed. It'll increase our tax base and it'll enhance what the city has to offer.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Pogorilich, What are your feelings and thoughts regarding the national movement to, quote, defund the police, end quote?
Well, I think I've made my thoughts known on that. The short answer is we should be defending, not defunding. Especially here in Temple Terrace, our police are the fabric of our city. They are much more than responders, even though they have the absolute best response times in the area. They can be anywhere in the city in under 5 minutes, but they're more than responders. They show up at our schools to teach prevention. I was fully in support of, when I was on council, of our chief's untiring efforts to bring a Boys and Girls Club to Temple Terrace, and he did that. In fact, they just built a new basketball court there. So, I say defend, not defund. Some of the things people say is they need more training. Our police officers are some of the best trained in the area, but even though they're the best trained, just recently they teamed up with, hang on a second, with Georgetown University to support the initiative for a law enforcement agency committed to building a culture of peer intervention and preventing harm to each other and to the citizens. So they haven't stopped. They continued their training. They've all got body cams for transparency. They are all approachable. Like I said, before COVID-19 hit, if anybody wanted to speak to our police officers, we had coffee with a cop. I support our law enforcement, and like I said before, I'm very proud and honored to have received the endorsement of the Fraternal Order of Police. So I say defend, not defund.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Abel, what are your feelings and thoughts regarding the national movement to, quote, defund the police, end quote?
I understand the sentiment behind the phrase defund the police. I have talked to police officers about this at length, as well as many community stakeholders about this. And the meaning behind defund the police is to be sure that the social services of the community are being met before we send officers to issues that the community is facing. I spoke to people in Temple Terrace about that, and I think that in many ways the Temple Terrace Police Department is going in the right direction. Like Mr. Pogorilich mentioned, Project Abel is the Georgetown University program that encourages police intervention it's pretty much rooting out bad cops. It's finding the opportunity to intervene if someone is doing the wrong thing, applying force when they shouldn't be applying force, and I think that's really a step in the right direction. St. Petersburg made a movement toward making sure that they're hiring social workers that can intervene, that are not armed, and social workers are very skilled at talking people down and not escalating situations. I believe the Temple Terrace Police doesn't really have an issue with escalating situations, and I don't think that the Temple Terrace Police has any reason to be defunded right now. However, I do understand the sentiment behind that based on national events, but if we're talking about Temple Terrace right now, I think that we need to support our police because, for the most part, I believe that they're doing a good job.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Khawaja, what are your feelings and thoughts regarding the national movement to, quote, defund the police, end quote?
Again, this was done as a form of protest that happened in isolated areas in the country. But when we talk about City of Temple Terrace, we have the best police force that the city can have. They work tirelessly and hard to protect and serve. As I mentioned earlier also, I was one of the victims during the rioting. They were there within minutes and they secured my premises. So to do this, I think I understand the feeling and our parts of the nation, what happened to come up with these things, and I respect it. But as far as the city of Temple Terrace is concerned, I think we should support them, be behind them, and if you look in also, our police force is very diverse. It's full of diversity, and they are very, very professional. Yes, there's certain issues that might come up. We can have training and assistance, or maybe get some specialities and special scenarios to give them the knowledge and the experience that would be added to them. But as far as training as far as being, when you look into that, even the rate of pay for the city of Temple Terrace Police Department, we scored one of the highest ranking pay for as far as other cities. And they deserve it. And it's one job that everybody should be behind their police officers, because what they're doing, it's very difficult.
Thank you, sir. Will you promise to always stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and National Anthem when presented?
Yes, I'm a school teacher. In public school, every day they say, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And to just sit there and slouch and check my phone during that would be disrespectful. However, I do respect people's right for free speech. So if they don't want to stand for the pledge, it's entirely in their right to do that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Khawaja, will you promise to always stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and National Anthem when presented?
Yes, of course. I come from a diverse background. To me, the flag and the Pledge of Allegiance, and also serving even as a Diversity Advisory Council, we always pledge an allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. But whatever happened back, I think, when the football player with the NFL kneeled down, and some people, it's a game, it's a form of protest that happens in other parts of the country. And I feel with all these people that they needed to get their voice or sounds across. But as far as Raed Khawaja, his family, the Pledge of Allegiance and the national anthem is very important to him. Those 31. And anyway, there is a big history about the Pledge of Allegiance. If you go and I studied that even as soon as I came to this country 38 years ago. And I love it and I respect it. And also, it's part of also our armed forces, people who risk and put their lives online. So to me, it's very, very important and ought to be respected. But if some people use it as a way of their protest, I'll also understand and respect that. But they can hold a sign or some other things.
All right, sir, thank you. Ms. Pogorilich, will you promise to always stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and National Anthem when presented?
Yes, I am absolutely very proud to be an American. Like I said, growing up, my parents, my father and his family came over here from Yugoslavia. My grandmother and my grandfather spoke little to no English. We tried hard and often to get my grandmother and grandfather to teach us Yugoslavian and Italian. They wouldn't do it. They kept saying, you're American, learn American, learn American. So since I was a little boy, that's been driven into me, and they were proud to be here, and they were proud to be an Americans, and they made me proud to be an American. It's, to me, the pledge is more than just words. It's us reaffirming that we believe in the rights and privileges that we were given as Americans that you don't see in other countries. So again, as everybody else has said, people have a right to make their own protest, but it's to me, you live in America, you should be proud to be an American, and part of being proud to be an American is standing and putting your hand over your heart and saying the Pledge of Allegiance, and I will always do that because I am a proud American.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Khawaja,
Yes.
how do you plan to serve in this role in a nonpartisan manner, but focusing on the greater good of Temple Terrace?
Yes, that's what attracted me to this council seat. It's, first of all, I know we're called politicians, but we're legislators. We are here to help the people and to serve as a nonpartisan. That's what attracted me to this council seat, because I'm going to be for every resident in the city of Temple Terrace. We are going to be their public servants. I'm not going to look into the background, whether Republicans or Democrats or no party. This is how the seat for City of Temple Terrace should be for all the people under the City of Temple Terrace jurisdiction. So you have to serve them without having any different feelings, or you have to be considering all their diversity too, because there are different parties, different beliefs, different ethnic background. You're here for all citizens and all residents, and that's what really attracted me mostly for this city council. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Pogorilich, how do you plan to serve this role in a nonpartisan manner, but focusing on the greater good of Temple Terrace?
That's the job. Like I said, I've been volunteering in the city of Temple Terrace for 20 years. I've always considered myself a public servant, not a politician. Also, a good idea knows no party. It's a good idea. So we have to stop looking at the messenger and listen to the ideas, no matter who it's coming from. Too often, not so much in local politics, but in national politics, people dismiss ideas because it came from either a Democrat or a Republican. We have to get away from that. We have to start looking at each other and helping each other push towards our common goals instead of fighting with each other over our perceived differences. We have to push forward and help each other move the city in a positive direction rather than fighting with each other so that we end up not moving anywhere. So when I'm elected, I plan on doing what's best for the city, regardless of partisan politics. They don't come into play in any decision I've ever made anyway. But certainly in this day and age where we see so much partisanship, I think that doesn't have any place in local government. And like I said before, ideas know no party. They are either good or bad on their own, regardless of the messenger.
All right. Thank you, sir. Ms. Abel, how do you plan to serve in this role in a nonpartisanship manner, but focusing on the greater good of Temple Terrace?
I know who I am and what I stand for. And the reason I'm running for Temple Terrace City Council is because I want to take care of Temple Terrace. And to do that, I want to be sure that I listen to all, regardless of their political affiliation. I want to promote equity and environmental sustainability and make this a great place to call home and a great place for businesses. I have a very conservative neighbor down the street, and I walk my dog past him every day. And we talk, we're on a very friendly basis. He's got Trump flags in his yard, I do not. And we talked one day, and he said, you know, I'm a really conservative person, but I'm considering voting for you. I see the signs in your yard, and I think that we would disagree. But you seem like a reasonable person. And that's what I am. I'm a reasonable person. I'll listen to everybody, and my greatest priority is the needs of Temple Terrace.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Pogorilich. Plans including site plans and construction have been approved, but no action has been taken regarding the sites. What would you suggest on pushing these sites to be completed?
Okay. Well, this is certainly in my wheelhouse. As a construction consultant, I see this all the time. The problem is, you know, once you sell the land and the permit is issued and the plans are approved, it's in the hands of the individual or company that's bought it. Having said that, I think we can, and we do it. We have a dedicated redevelopment person in the room with us tonight that are in constant contact with these individuals. And quite frankly, without that constant contact, I don't think you would have seen the Burger King coming down as soon as it did. I think that he played a big part in making sure that happens. There is nothing, we can't fine them, we can't punish them, we can't take back the land we sold them, but we can certainly push them by having constant contact with them and finding out what their problems are and helping when there is a problem. I don't know, maybe it's a, I don't know, maybe it's a TICO issue. The TICO needs to move their lines or something, or the cable company needs to move their lines. We can certainly help in that regard in removing obstructions that may be getting in their way from them moving forward. But it's their property, and for the most part, they control the schedule.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Abel, plans including site plans and construction have been approved, but no action has been taken regarding the sites. What would you suggest on pushing these sites to be completed?
Well, as a city, we really need them to make progress on those sites that they have purchased. We need it for the tax revenue, and we need it in order to move forward. However, like Mr. Pogorilich said, we can't just find them, but we do need to be in constant contact. We need to put pressure on them to follow through on what they set out to do, and we need to make sure that they follow through with the site plans as they've been made. I think in the past, some of the delays have been due to the fact that they had a site plan approved, and then they made some changes, and then they tried to start building, and they weren't really following the regulations, and that slows things down. So we need to make sure we have the constant lines of communication open to make sure the plans line up with what's actually happening.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Khawaja. Plans including site plans and construction have been approved, but no action has been taken regarding the sites. What would you suggest on pushing these sites to be completed?
Well, let me talk as an engineer, because I worked with site plans and redevelopment. Now, there is something called contract, and having a contract, and especially on the part of a city, when we're not going to be dealing like a regular person to one person. This is a city interest, a city that's gonna, their redevelopment is not gonna make them look bad. It's gonna make us all in the city look bad. So we could, as far as redevelopment, develop some kind of contract, and that gives them some timeline. Yes, we will work with them on certain issues if things come up. As you would know, there are utilities underground. We could, it could take longer to get those people going. But we have to have, in everything that we do, we have to have a timeline and a time schedule. Otherwise, in my projects that I was in, some of them were as small as developing a 7-Eleven, and you should see the contract and the timing. Even rewarding if we finished it early and got it up and going. So it's in any kind of business, you have to have some solid negotiation and solid agreements with these the redevelopments, and get the rolling, or the ball rolling. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Abel, I would like to know their stand on our police department. Do they support our police, or did they intend to take over our police and dictate what they can do? I would like to elect somebody that believes in law and order.
Questions like that create false dichotomies. Believing in law and order and being supportive of the good things that the police are doing, I don't think that's the same thing. I'm not in favor of rioting and looting by any means. That's not okay, and that needs to be stopped. That's the job of the police, is to uphold law and order. But many of my constituents are worried. They're scared. They see the events that are happening nationally, where police have done police brutality. And like I said, I don't think that's happening in Temple Terrace, and I think the training is in place. I do support the Temple Terrace Police Department, and I think that they should have the funding to do their job. However, I also understand that there's reasons to be critical of the police. And as a citizen, I think it's very important to make sure that you don't just say you support something no matter what they do. I think it's important to be able to speak out and be able to say what needs to be said, and make sure that the things that need to happen are happening with the police department.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Khawaja, I would like to know their stand on our police department. Do they support our police, or did they intend to take over our police and dictate what they can do? I would like to elect somebody that believes in law and order.
Yes, as I mentioned before too, and I even spoke to Chief Albano, This is the city of Temple Terrace. If we look at it as a city of Temple Terrace, has the best police professional force that we have in the country. When you look at every department and the security and safety that makes me, being there for 25 years, I'm so confident. It's just an amazing feeling to feel secure. Now, as I mentioned before, maybe special situations, special scenarios, add those trainings in. But as far as supporting the police force, law and order, we all have to be behind our police force, because you won't believe how hard they're working till you be in a situation like the situation I've been in as a business owner. When you see how many police officers responded to that plaza, it was not from the inner city. It was during that rioting. Now, I want law and order. I support our police department. Whether I'm elected or not, I'm gonna keep supporting our police department, because we all live in this city and we need to be behind our police force. Those are the people who are risking their life on a daily basis to protect us, to serve us. And we have the most diverse police department in the nation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Pogorilich, I would like to know their stand on the police department. Do they support our police, or do they intend to take over our police and dictate what they can do? I would like to elect somebody that believes in law and order.
Thank you. Some time ago, there was a Zoom meeting to discuss what they called a justice board. I wasn't invited to that meeting, and I think the reason for that is because I do support the police. That justice board meeting, I believe, was a poor solution desperately seeking a problem that doesn't exist. I don't think citizens have the right to second guess what the police are doing. There are already methodologies in place for when bad things happen, the police do, and they work just fine. We have never had an incident in Temple Terrace that involved our police doing anything of that nature. I fully support our police. I believe we should fund them so that they can continue to do their job properly. Like I said, here in Temple Terrace, they're part of the fabric of our city. They're not just responders. They show up at our schools to teach prevention. They worked hard to get a Boys and Girls Club. They are part and parcel of our city. I mean, just like, you know, we love our sanitation guys because they look out over the city just like our police does. There's no need to be second guessing them or to be changing what they do. They have the best training. They continue to improve their training, and I fully support them.
All right, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Khawaja.
Yes.
Do you support the council, city manager form of government?
The council, city manager?
Yes.
Yes. Of course I support that. That's one of the best things that I can say, because having a council that has a city manager that's always working very hard to produce and do all the tedious and hard work and present it to us city council to vote on, agree or not agree, or modify, improve with modification. That's the way it's supposed to be done. Everybody has different opinion, but when you have the hired professionals and a good city manager and good city staff, that's how the council can function. That's how we get things rolling. But that's the way I think. But on top of that, there are certain issues that the public has to be involved in. And all these meetings and all these council members, they're always there. Their council meetings are open to the public. Yes, with COVID-19 right now, it's very hard to have the room, but recently they've been filling up and having that social distances and everybody getting their temperature checked and checked in. But that's the way it's supposed to be. You know, we have a manager.
All right, sir, thank you. Mr. Pogorilich, do you support the council city manager form of government?
Well, given the alternative would be a strong mayor form of government, like the city of Tampa has, I think the city manager form of government for Temple Terrace works. Now, having said that, I think it's very important that the city manager, and you were there, you knew it, you worked it, and you did a great job. It's important that the city manager keep the council informed of what's going on, simply because the citizens don't necessarily know to look to the city manager for answers. They look to their council representatives for answers. So it's very important that there's a dialogue, a continuous dialogue for items that may even seem trivial between the city manager and the council for it to work. The reason I think it does work in the city of Temple Terrace is because we are a smaller city. We need somebody here to manage the day-to-day operations as the city manager. But at the same time, for bigger issues and for policy changes and to keep our council informed so that they can speak intelligently to the public, there has to be ongoing dialogue. So yes, I think I'm in support of a city manager form of government here in Temple Terrace as opposed to a strong mayor form of government. But that form of government must include day-to-day conversations between the city manager and all the council members.
All right, sir, thank you. Ms. Abel, do you support the council city manager form of government?
Most smaller communities in Florida, probably nationwide, have the city manager and council form of government. And I think it's pretty effective in many ways. Recently, our charter has changed, though. A couple of years ago, it was voted to change the number of voting council members down to 4 with a voting mayor. And I think these changes reduce the number of representatives that we have in our council manager form of government. And I think that more representatives is better because then we have more opportunities for citizen input. I also think another improvement we could make to our council manager system is having districting so that we have representatives who are from different areas and maybe some that are at large representing the whole city. And I think that way we would have more equitable representation of the people in this city. I think that also the strong mayor format that Tampa and most larger cities use is also very costly, and we don't have the tax base to support that, and we don't need a full-time council and a full-time mayor, and the city manager does the job of getting most of that stuff together. So yes, I support it, but I think that it might need some changes in order to better meet the needs of Temple Terrace.
Thank you. This is the last question. I think, Mr. Pogorilich, you're up. What thoughts do you have to improve the appearance of some of the existing businesses in the city?
Well, there's been a lot of discussion on the campaign trail about that. My hopes is that as we continue to redevelop and bring new buildings into fruition, and people can see that the individual owners of those different centers would take it upon themselves to improve their facades, et cetera. You can see some of that happening. The building next to Carrabba's just underwent a pretty nice renovation. In the past, there have been grants, facade grants, that have been available for businesses to improve their facades. I think the city can certainly play a part in helping the owners of those particular properties know about those grants and possibly even help them apply for those particular grants and improve the various facades. And certainly nobody would disagree that as you drive around Temple Terrace, there are some, we're getting older, and some of the facades certainly need an updating and upgrading, at least a fresh set of paint. And you're seeing that happening in some places, but not in others. I think we could promote, keep Temple Terrace beautiful or something along those lines, and then look at maybe helping them get some facade grants if they're available to help them improve the exterior of their buildings.
All right, sir, thank you. Ms. Abel, what thoughts do you have to improve the appearance of some of the existing businesses in the city?
I think that as I drive down 56th Street, there are some buildings that are very well maintained and other buildings that could use some work. And I hope that we could find some grants. I hope grants are available in order to give those places a facelift. And I think that community investment is really important. And as we have new developments coming into the city, that's going to bring in more tax revenue that should be used to reinvest into the community. And that shouldn't just go to the new areas. That should also go to the existing businesses so that they can thrive and benefit from the new development as well.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Khawaja, what thoughts do you have to improve the appearance of some existing businesses in the city?
Yes, I'll speak as a businessman now. It's very important, the appearance of the building or the businesses and the way we operate, because you are going to attract, trust me, I know that for a fact. Taking examples of several friends and even family member who bought an worn down building, whether there are grants or not, excuse me, you are gonna, first of all, increase the value of your property. As a property owner, let's talk property owner, and then we'll talk also businesses. You're gonna increase the property value. In turns, is gonna return more revenues to us in the city, and at the same time, also is gonna encourage shoppers and people to go, excuse me, sure. So it's very important to the appearance of these buildings, and as you can see, I think that the city is almost 94 years old, if I'm not mistaken. There are some places maybe never been there, but at least some areas that even I know in the shopping center I'm in, it's 40 years old and it looks brand new. Also, it's not only that, the changing the facade, also the maintenance and taking care of your property, beautifying it, landscaping it. That's very, very important to a very attractive city that we are gonna always push to have this city of Temple Terrace to always stay attractive and stay as a family city.
Thank you, sir. Well, thank each of you. At this point, we will provide you 5 minutes for closing comments, remarks, and start alphabetically again. Ms. Abel, with you, please.
Thank you. Again, I would like to say thank you to everyone for arranging this. This was a really nice event, and being able to answer these questions was, it got me thinking, and it really helped me hear the visions of the other candidates as well. So before I make my closing remarks, I'd like to make a comment about the Justice Board. And the Justice Board was a critical discussion, and it was organized because I want to hear the case for promoting justice in Temple Terrace. Justice is not just about policing. It's about equitable access to education, housing, city services, parks, and representation. And it's important to listen to people who are different from you for those types of things. And here in Temple Terrace, we have a very diverse community, and I reached out to stakeholders who could speak on those things. And we do have a need for a Justice Board in this community so that we can address these inequalities. So to make my closing comments, though, I first started thinking about running for Temple Terrace City Council about a year ago. And first I started talking to my family about why I wanted to run. Then I started to talk to friends and neighbors. And then I started to reach out to more and more people in the community. And I really felt like people have very strong feelings about Temple Terrace. We have a really active citizenry who really cares about the future of the city. And what I learned is that Temple Terrace really wants a breath of fresh air. Temple Terrace wants someone with a new perspective. And demographically speaking, the median age in Temple Terrace is 35. And I'm 35. And I think that it's important to have people who represent the ages of the people in this city. Listen, guys, the millennials are coming. They're starting to buy houses here. They have young kids. They live in this community. They go to the schools, and they're different. We have different concerns and different issues. And I think it's really important to have a millennial on council because I can speak for the issues that my generation is facing. In addition to that, in summary, I want to make Temple Terrace a more welcoming, economically, environmentally sustainable, and inclusive place where businesses can thrive. I want to be able to walk or bicycle downtown to have brunch. I want there to be a local brewery that people want to come visit. I would like Temple Terrace to be a destination where we can have tours that showcase our architectural heritage. Maybe a quaint little bed and breakfast, not an Airbnb, guys, just a quaint bed and breakfast, where people can come and appreciate the wonderful things our city has to offer. I believe in Temple Terrace's potential, but I want to make it a reality. I love Temple Terrace. I was so excited to buy a house here a few years after I graduated from college and start my career here and start my family here. And Temple Terrace is a great place to raise kids. I've had a great time here. I've met great people here. I have a wonderful neighborhood and great neighbors. And I'm so excited to be a part of the leadership in Temple Terrace. I think that we have a lot of great organizations that we could partner up with in order to be better, like the Tampa Innovation Alliance. The Uptown Chamber of Commerce now includes the whole area extending past the university, and there's so much interesting and exciting things going on. Like I said, Temple Terrace has great potential, and I'm so excited to have an opportunity to be a part of it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Khawaja.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank City Hall staff for all their leadership and organization of this wonderful forum. It was nice to be able to portray my platform as a potential councilman to everyone, and I hope I reached all my city of Temple Terrace people, and I'm still gonna come to you and knock on your door to talk to you, and this to be continued. Any more questions from you is very welcome. I hope to continue to provide for my city and give back the way they have given me and my family. I'm a hard worker, successful businessman, and also a civil engineer. And I want to be on this council to help them with all the civil and engineering questions they have. Not only that, also decision making. I'm a good communicator and a problem solver, willing to accomplish as much as possible for the city of Temple Terrace, but realistically, for all the residents of city of Temple Terrace. The city of Temple Terrace municipal government promises continuous improvement, and I am here before you to say that I'm dedicated to that promise. I have never and will never discriminate, nor I dismiss any voice. However, I will push the city forward and beautify it for generations to come. As seen throughout my previous experience, in this community, I vow to bring diversity, commitment, knowledge, and good judgment to the council to move the city forward. What sets me apart from my competitors is that I do what I'm doing. It comes all from my heart. This is my first campaign, and I work very hard to help every single person in the city of Temple Terrace. Respect for everyone in the city and all that I can do. For more information about me, about my family, please visit my website at electraedkhawaja.us. Thank you again, and vote at the early voting. Your voice count. October 19th through November 1st at the public library, 7 o'clock. I will see you probably every day there. And also, the big day is on November 3rd. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to see all of you residents and everybody in this room. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Pogorilich.
I want to say thank you, Kim, and thank you, staff, for putting this all together, and thank you to the citizens out there watching tonight. For 20 years, I've given back to Temple Terrace through the Metropolitan Planning Organization, the Riverwatch Task Force, the Board of Adjustment. I've served two terms as your code enforcement chairman. I volunteered for Paint Your Heart Out, Habitat for Humanity, and Metropolitan Ministry. I brought people with different views together as your Bat Tower liaison, as your Temple Terrace Golf and Country Club liaison, and as your accounting liaison. In every aspect of our lives, whether it's looking for a doctor or picking a restaurant, whether it's getting your car fixed or painting your house, we look for experience. We don't just go to the first person we see. We don't just go to some new place. In the age of COVID and all the negative impacts it's had on our businesses and our residents and all the negative impacts that are yet to come to the city's budget, why would you want to do anything different with a $66 million budget? I say vote for experience. I say vote for Pogo. I say together we are better. And God bless Temple Terrace and God bless the United States of America.
Thank you, sir. Well, with that, I just want to thank each of you for participating tonight. I think, from my viewpoint, what an outstanding job each of you have done. Of course, I want to thank the greatest residents in the state, and those are those of Temple Terrace. I do want to mention that there is a recording of this evening's event is available on the city's YouTube site. And as was mentioned earlier, please vote in the general election November 3rd. And if you prefer to vote early voting runs from October 19th through November 1st at the Temple Terrace Library. With that, again, thank you, and we stand adjourned.